Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting frost-bitten episode of the Michael and Patty Show. I'm Michael.
And I'm Patty.
And today we're adjacent to a giant snowbank. We've had our first freeze here at the middle end of December, and things are looking very Christmassy.
It does look very Christmassy, which everyone here on the island has been waiting for that feeling of the ground being covered with snow, so it really does feel like a Canadian Christmas here.
If you're new to the show, Patty and I bring you over 40 years of PEI real estate experience, having handled thousands of transactions combined. So without delay, let's get right into it. But before we do, be sure you check out our Facebook group. It's Moving to Prince Edward Island with the Michael and Patty podcast. So it's sort of a bolt-on addition to the podcast where we actually do. Maybe you can tell them what we do there since you're doing it.
Yes. So it's an extension or a summary of the podcast episodes that if you're listening to this, you can always subscribe or request to join. It is a private group. We do that just to make sure that there's no solicitation, that people are not going to be inundating you with, because we do get too much commercials coming at us. We've had a few, unfortunately, not adhere to the rules. So please know it's a group. It's a safe group. You will not be solicited or hounded. It is all about educating you, which is the theme of the Michael and Patty Show. So the Moving to Prince Edward Island, please know that it is spelt completely out because there are a few that are just moved to PEI or moving to PEI. Ours is actually Moving to Prince Edward Island from the Michael and Patty podcast.
So let's get on with it. We're going to talk about listing appointments. What's a listing appointment?
So listing appointment is where a seller calls you up and says, I have an interest in selling.
And then, what about an email or text?
Sometimes they will, or they will test out and they'll send you an inquiry on a listing that you may have, because they want to get in, maybe see it as a potential move going forward. In the end, though, really just wanting to get somebody in, and they're kind of interviewing agents this way to see who they want to meet with.
So let's just touch on that from the start. A lot of people think they ask their friends and their friends say, well, just have 3 different agents in and go with the highest price. I would say don't do that at all. I would say do your research. Pick an expert. An expert, by definition of this show, is someone with 10,000 hours in PEI real estate, not other markets, which adds up to about 5 years full-time, 40 hours a week, and someone that's done 1,000 transactions. Then you check out their marketing, and the list goes on and on and on. That's a topic for another podcast. Today, we're talking about the listing appointment, which you're going to book one agent, or if they work as a team of 2 people like Patty and I, we'll both come out to your property to take a look. So a listing appointment, I'm going to describe what it doesn't consist of and what I've shook my head at in horror when I started real estate and what a listing appointment should look at. And I'll pass it over to Patty. So what a listing appointment doesn't look like is somebody showing up with a bunch of cut sheets of sales telling you what your house is worth based on the fact that they've never seen it in person before, and they've looked up a bunch of cut sheets, which again, they probably haven't seen those listings either, so they're going to tell you what your house is worth, and in this case, you may end up finding that evaluation may be not legitimate, or it's too high, or it's too low. You had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when an agent comes in with that strategy or tactic, they're hoping that by throwing out a few property cut sheets, what we call them, property feature sheets, that the seller ends up giving their price and then they latch on to that, and that's how they scoop or secure the listing because they tell the seller what they want to hear.
I feel, based on my experience, and even when I was inexperienced, I remember people in the real estate industry just pulling numbers out of the air. And I go back to my computer and I'd say, I don't know where these numbers are coming from, but they're certainly not based on reality. That's, take building lots, for instance. I remember building lots that weren't selling for $25,000. They're telling me, oh, that's got to be worth $100,000. Where? In Fantasyland? It's important to see the actual data from which the number is derived. And this is why you don't need to talk to 10 different agents. You just need to see the data set, which is what all the agents are using to establish a fair market value for that property. So now that we've covered what a listing appointment doesn't consist of, which is basically you phoning an agent, the agent says, okay, I'll be there out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Number one, if you got an agent that can show up the next day at 2 p.m., probably not the agent you want to hire because they're probably not that busy in most cases.
I would agree.
Most agents that are busy and selling properties usually take a week or two to get in the door, in my experience. The quicker they are to respond, albeit some clients may see that as high service, I would see it as you've just picked an agent who has nothing better to do than head out to your place tomorrow at 2 p.m. with 12, 14 hours notice. As far as the visit to the actual property, I don't do that until I go through I would refer to it as a interview, where I actually have a number of questions that I would ask the seller. So when I do show up, I'm actually prepared. I want to know what their motivation is. I want to know a bunch of other stuff, which I'm not going to get into here, but I am going to know more than anyone else that visits that property through my interview process on the phone.
So I'll just summarize what not to do or what not to look for is somebody you just give them a call or send them an email. They're able to drop everything, show up at your house pretty quickly within 24 hours. Don't really ask you any questions on the phone, and they bring some cut sheets. That, just to summarize what you were saying, Michael, is what you should be a little leery of because they don't seem to have the systems and processes in place. So now, because you've started on what an actual listing process should look like, and you're starting right now with the seller intake.
Well, seller intake, I guess, would be a more appropriate way of calling or referring to the interview process. But the other thing is, in that interview process, I want to know what the motivation is. Is this someone that has to sell this week because there's an emergency in some other province or state and they have to be gone? Is it somebody, maybe a husband or wife died, they don't want to be in the house any longer, but they don't want to sell it in 2 days, but they don't want to take 3 years to sell it? Is it a professional house flipper where they don't care if it takes a year or two? The main concern is how much money they're going to make, hopefully without paying capital gains. I want to know their situation, and that's what that pre-interview or that intake should tell me.
Yeah.
So what does a listing appointment look like without beating this to death?
Okay. So starts with a phone call. Preferably, you should if you're a seller listening to this, and you want to know whether or not you're hiring a professional, they will ask you those kind of questions that Michael has just pointed out. Plus, there's many more questions that should be asked. The quality of the questions is sometimes a pretty clear or a pretty good indicator that you're dealing with a professional. The scheduled appointment happens, so now the agent shows up at your property, and they are going to be obviously touring through the home. The tour is very important without disclosing our strategies and techniques, but the tour will also be very indicative of whether or not you've hired a professional who's in control in this whole interaction and meeting, because it should be a mutual decision. It's not the seller controls the game, and it's not that the listing agent controls the whole interaction. It should be a mutual interaction or a collaboration, because you are going to hopefully work well together going forward. So they come into the home, they should be asking you questions, they should be obviously touring, which is a whole art and skill in itself. They should have a listing presentation. I cannot stress enough, someone that just comes in and has a conversation, kind of shoots the crap with you a little bit, walks through the home to make you feel good that you're giving a tour and playing realtor, and then tosses you a few cut sheets on your kitchen table or counter and has a conversation of pricing, and then you mutually decide, oh yeah, well, I'm good with that price. Okay, let's work together. that is something that you should be concerned with. A presentation, sitting down. What is this person going to do to market and promote your property? How do they come to establish a price on your property? Do they actually have formulas and a strategy or technique? It's not just a matter of, again, pulling a number out of the air, if you will. So that is what a competent listing agent, they will help you determine what the best price for the property and for you based on your why. Why are you selling, or what your motivation is? And when you strategize and you work together to determine that best price based on your situation, then you should hopefully feel confident, I've just hired a professional.
The marketing proposal, typically the way Patty and I, just may step back here for a second, work is Patty, after we go through the house, after we do our information gathering, not just only on the house, but facts about insurance, breaker panels, you name it, services,
Mortgage.
fiber op, internet access, what type of furnace and heating system is there, insulation, it goes on and on and on. Mortgage, because you don't want to sell the house for less than the actual outstanding mortgage, which has been done in the past.
And if there's any liens on the property, we need to know that. A good agent will be equipped when they show up at your property, and they should know those kinds of information.
So after that, then we sit down typically at the kitchen table, and since there's two of us, and that's done on purpose, I or Patty would usually go through the marketing proposal to show you what we're going to do to sell your house for more money in less time with less hassle. The less hassle comes from experience, the more time comes from the marketing. The price is mutually agreed to based on your timeline, and that's why we get into days on market and absorption rates.
And you mean less time, because you said more time.
Yes, well, it could be more time if you're looking for more money.
Okay.
If you're a professional house flipper, you're building a house and then you're selling it every year or two or three, you become a professional real estate investor, and then typically you're going to be on the market for more time because you're looking for more money, right?
Correct.
But we're also going to take the market value and say, based on the market value, if you were at market, how many days are you going to be on market based on the information that we have and all the other agents have.
100%.
And then at the same time, we're doing the marketing proposal. One of us, the other one's working on calculating all these numbers so we can actually show you where the number's being derived and it's not pulled out of the air.
Yes, and the point in doing that, so sometimes if I'm by myself and I'm doing a listing presentation, I will go back to my office. It's easy when it's a cookie cutter house. So a house that's got many of the same type of build in a specific neighborhood or area location on the island. But when you have sometimes a unique property, to try to do it on the spot and come up with a fair market value, it can be a little bit challenging and difficult. And I don't want to just say a number to humor a seller. I need to believe in that number, and as much as I feel that the seller should, because it installs and it raises the confidence in negotiations going forward. If you are just randomly picking out numbers and going to just test the market, if you will, then it kind of leaves you in a position when a buyer does submit an offer. Is this a good offer? Is this what I should be expecting? But if you do your homework, and again, sometimes I could spend a couple days because then properties all start to blur together, even for us who've been in the industry for a very long time. Sometimes it's best just to go, I've combed through half an hour, sometimes 2 hours worth of properties. I'm just going to look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow. So I usually ask my seller clients, just give me a day or two, depending on just what properties are available, to make sure that we're giving you a confident number. And then I also send it off in a format so that my seller client can go through the listing pictures and see all the details of those properties that I'm using as comparables, and not a property feature sheet with just a little thumbnail picture of the property, because that doesn't show the seller what does this house look like inside? Is it an actual comparable? So I do have ways that I'm able to send off a listing or a couple, you should have at least a couple, that I feel the price, these are the ones that we're going to, use as as best comparables as we can find, because sometimes it's not easy. And I want that seller to feel confident in the number. And that's my goal at the end of the day, because that's what a strong negotiator would do to represent a seller.
And you definitely don't want to have someone buy your listing, somebody that basically comes in. So what do you want for the house? Oh, that sounds wonderful. Okay, let's list it for that. And you're sitting there 3 years later, wondering why it hasn't sold. And then you have this mental mindset where, oh, they put it on for $800,000 and now you have to lower it to $600,000. So in your mind, you're thinking you're losing $200, but you're not, because the number was just made up and the agent just bought the listing without looking at the data. The other thing you can look at if you're going to play with the market, which I believe is what you said, or test the market were your words, look at the expireds. Do you want to end up on that list?
No, because guess what the expired list consists of? They have two things in common.
They're juicy listings to pick up to reduce the market value and sell them because the first agent didn't do the research and didn't interview the client?
Spoken like a realtor. I'm speaking about the seller. What two things does everyone who is on the expired list have in common? They never sold their property and they never met their dreams and goals. And you don't want to be on that expired list or in that club.
And they're overpriced to begin with. And in a lot of cases, the seller will blame the agent because they couldn't sell their overpriced house.
Okay, well, in a seller's defense, sometimes it's not. As a seller, please check your marketing representation, because I cannot believe the number of bad listing photos that are starting to appear on our system is becoming a little disappointing. There are professional photographers out there. So if you're an agent listening to this, sellers are paying you to provide a service. Do that service. Part of that service is creating or putting together an attractive marketing representation to get that seller the most amount of money. I've seen properties, Michael, that aren't overpriced. It's just the buyers are bypassing it because the photos are terrible. So be
good
mindful.
Point. I just picked one of those up. It's basically a cottage that it's half built. It's sort of a hobby project, and somebody else bought it, and it's still kind of a hobby project. There's stuff everywhere. It's not something you can really stage. So what do you do in that case? Do you have 50 really crappy photos? In this case, the agent took them with an iPhone vertically, which don't syndicate to many websites. I think the best thing to do with a situation like that is use aerial photos, because in this case, it's 15, 20 acres on the water, show the positive aspects of the three most important things to any real estate, which is location, 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 and maybe have one or two shots of the outside. We don't need 50 crappy shots. We need them to visit the property, feel the location, and allow them to dream.
So turn this back to the sellers again. As part of your screening of who you're going to call to have this interview and see what they offer, is look at their listing inventory and see what their marketing photos look like on their existing properties that they have listed.
I just received a compliment just yesterday on mine.
Nice.
I thought that was kind of nice.
Of course, you always do a great job, Michael.
I'll just sit here patting myself on the back now. When is the best time to present an offer? This happens once in a while. You have an agent that is a legend in their own mind. They got into the business when things were hot and they've done 10 deals, so they think they're Barbara Corcoran. And they figure, well, the best time to present an offer is Saturday night at 6 p.m. What do agents usually do at that time when offers are presented?
They're usually...
It's an inconvenience.
100%.
And then they leave the timelines tight because they're nitwits, and they didn't even talk to the agent to see if they're even around on a Saturday night at 6 or a Sunday morning at 8.
Or the seller.
They
could be out at Christmas parties or holiday functions or...
So how receptive do you think the seller and the listing agent are going to be to someone presenting an offer at 6 o'clock at night, unbeknownst to them? Not expecting it, just shows up out of the blue? They're not. They're going to reject it, or they're going to respond quickly without major thought.
Yeah, you've just created a negative tone right out of the gates of your negotiations to inconvenience. Now, the listing agent, this is what we do. So if you're a seller going, well, I thought that's what they're supposed to be doing. Yes, we do. We do have lives, but if you're out and about, you don't want that listing agent to be rushing through the process, because that's when mistakes get made and things get missed. And you don't want to upset a seller when they're like, well, they just left this open until 12 o'clock. This is where I'm at.
10 o'clock, Sunday morning.
Well, I was just Sunday morning at 12 o'clock is all I was saying, because I've experienced this in the last month or so.
So have I.
And now it creates a bit of a negative tone, even if the offer is okay, because you never usually get a perfect offer, full price and all, conditions that, are tight and makes a seller go, ooh, this is a really good offer. I'm just going to sign and accept. That would be ideal, but it's not usually the norm. So you've already created a negative tone to your offer. If you're a buyer listening to this and submitting it at an inconvenience time, supper hour, chaos, they could have kids, whatever the situation is. And now they've got to discuss this offer before they go to bed. And now it's going to play on their mind. And their listing agent says, we'll just discuss this Sunday morning. Well, Sunday morning, they're tired. They're a little frustrated and feeling like someone was just a little pushy and was inconveniencing their time. Guess what? They're not going to be countering back with the nicest amount. They're going to be a little bit harder in their negotiations back with you.
So there's actually been research done on this, and it was titled The Best Day and Time to Present an Offer. I like this. Pure Psychology, Decision Science.
Oh, that's a pretty catchy line, Mike.
Do you think Monday's a great day to present an offer? No.
No? Okay.
Everyone's overwhelmed, catching up, more defensive, higher, default no behavior. This is all stats. Monday's a busy day, especially with agents, because they're usually out showing houses, doing open houses, doing whatever agents do, dealing with nitwits that present offers on a Saturday night. Fridays, decision fatigue is high. People avoid commitments heading into the weekend. Sellers want to wait and see what else comes in over the weekend.
Especially if there's showing scheduled.
Weekends. We kind of addressed this, or I did. Agents are slammed with showings, not admin negotiation. Sellers are distracted. Response times suck. Their words, not mine.
Okay.
Thursday, midweek, peak rationality. Studies across multiple industries show most consistent, least impulsive decision-making is always done on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So there's your target presentation days.
Okay. So this is for the standpoint of both the buyer and the seller.
It's the best time to present the offer.
Correct.
This is pure psychology and decision science.
Okay.
Highest email open rate and response commitment is in the middle of the week. Did you know that?
No.
Well, now you do. Lowest default no from fatigue midweek, so you have less rejections in the middle of the week. People feel less scarcity and are more open to reasonable compromise in the middle of the week. So the winner is Tuesday or Wednesday, probably leaning towards Wednesday.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's to mutually benefit both parties. This isn't just swaying in the favor of the seller, and it's not swaying in the favor of the buyer. It is the 2 days that you have the highest probability of negotiating a collaborative agreement. Just for that.
It is the highest potential for the buyer because they're more likely to get a better deal if they're presenting it a Tuesday or Wednesday, according to this, rather than a Saturday night at 6 o'clock.
But that's what I'm saying. It's mutually beneficial.
Absolutely.
It's not in favor of one party or the other, just in case the listeners are like, well, which day as a buyer should you submit? Which day as a seller should you receive? Or not submit your offer to tick off or upset the seller. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays just seem to be mutually beneficial for negotiations to happen.
Absolutely. And since we went from about 200 agents to over 500 agents when things were good and they thought real estate was a license to print money, guess when the phones start ringing during the day and offers come rolling in? 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
These are all the people that have 3 different part-time jobs or full-time jobs that are dilly-dallying in real estate, and then they'll send you an offer over, which brings me to my next point here. What's the best time of day to present the offer? We know it's Tuesday or Wednesday, but what time?
I would say just before lunch so that somebody has an opportunity, maybe on their lunch break, a seller, to take a look at it.
Define just before.
Like 11:30, so they can
Patty, you're way off.
Okay.
9:30 to 11.
Oh, okay.
Lunchtime, I'm thinking about eating. I'm starving. I'm hungry. I haven't had anything all day. I've had a couple of coffees. I want to go.
Well, you can eat, but a lot of people, if they're on their lunch break, they're scrolling and just kind of trying to check their mind out. This then becomes, I'm going to eat and I'm going to read through a contract agreement.
And what if they have a big, heavy pasta pizza meal?
Not a good, pizza.
I think you need to retract your just before lunch comment.
Okay, but if they're at work, I just feel like they're not going to be able to, I understand sending it.
They're not at work. They're retirees. They've got nothing to do. They just finished watching Price is Right.
Okay.
9:30 to 11 is when you present it. According to decision fatigue research, people make better, more favorable decisions early in the day after they've settled in, but they're not overloaded.
Gotcha.
Makes sense?
Yep.
Judges, loan officers, executives all show the same pattern right after starting the day, after coffee. Highest approval rates. This is also good for mortgage approvals, too.
Oh.
Visit your bank at 9:30 to 11, probably closer to 9:30. Late afternoon, default no. So all you part-time agents, don't send us stuff over at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
This is really good information.
Did you want to cover this? Agent psychology?
I will take a look. So listing agents typically, from an agent psychology standpoint, they have clear inboxes early on in the day. Usually most will kind of do a quick clean through first thing in the morning. So at that 9:30 to 11 does make sense that your inbox is already organized and you would be able to focus or address the offer in a more timely manner and probably think a little clearer because you don't have a lot of things going on around you to cloud your thoughts. Review files mid-morning makes complete sense. Actually have time to present and discuss the offer with the seller. They're still in a good mood, not worn down by the fires and the showings that have happened or other appointments or conditions that they're dealing with on other sale files. So from a listing agent, that the psychology, this I would 100% agree along with. And then the seller's psychology standpoint, if the offer is sent to the seller in that morning time period, they have the whole day to process it. They don't feel rushed. They don't default to, let's just wait another day, which is quite common actually. They're more likely to engage in a reasonable counter rather than an emotional one at night, which sometimes would just say, I don't have time for this. I'm not interested in playing their games. If they've come in this low, I can see a quicker default to no versus something where, again, that led me to another thought is how long do you leave an offer open for?
Well, maybe here's an abstract thought. Talk to the listing agent.
100%. Pick up the phone.
This last offer I got Saturday at 5, it was out of nowhere. And I didn't even get a text or a phone call telling me that the offer was sent to me. So it may or may not have even shown up, or maybe it was in my spam bin. But here's a concept, and Patty just hit the nail on the head. Talk to the listing agent, and we're going to do something really bizarre in techno world. We're going to do it on the phone, like adults.
Yeah, and they should. They should have a conversation. The buyer's agent should make every attempt and effort to connect with the listing agent. So you want to make sure if you're a seller, you have a listing agent that doesn't have another job and is not going to be available during the day to deal with any activity or offers that you may have coming in. So just something else, and our first point of this particular episode on the listing presentation portion. But you want to make sure that the listing agent and your listing agent has a conversation with the buyer's agent. Now, if the buyer's agent, Michael, doesn't give you a call, do you chase the buyer's agent in order?
I show up at their house.
Well, I feel if they did a poor job in representing their buyer, why am I chasing them down?
Just put in the purchase and sale agreement that the listing agent was nowhere to be found.
No, I mean, if you are the listing agent, do you as a listing agent chase down the buyer's agent to say, why did you submit this low offer? Can you tell me a little bit more about them? Because the buyer's agent didn't do their job.
There's nothing wrong with going through an offer with the buyer's agent
I agree.
to understand the rationale behind their offer, particularly if the offer is less than acceptable, which
Correct.
I had about 2 or 3 weeks ago with closing dates that were out 6 months and 50,000 different conditions. It's like, whatever compelled you even to write this offer without having a conversation with the listing agent, which would have the conversation with the vendors to determine if this is going to work. But obviously, these agents have more time on their hands than they can shake a stick at to spend hours and hours and hours formulating a contract that 99% of the time is never going to go together, mainly as a result of lack of communication or no communication whatsoever when they dilly-dally put together this offer.
Yeah, and you just made a really good point there. The buyer's agent spends so much time showing the property, preparing the offer, the communication back and forth with the buyer, trying to get everything, convey the buyer's position, but they won't make a less than 5-minute phone call to the listing agent to build the case to represent that buyer client. So if you're buyer's agent, just pick up the phone. If you're a buyer, ask your agent, are you going to be presenting this over the phone and having a conversation and letting the seller know this, and this? You need to know that.
So the best time to present an offer, Patty?
The sweet spot is between 9:30 a.m. and 11 a.m.
On what days?
And that's PEI time, where the property or wherever the property is located, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
That would be incorrect because we have further research to share.
Ooh, okay.
The ideal time, I feel like we need a drum roll, is Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Okay.
So from now on, all your offers have to be, and what they refer to here is that in this research as the magic hour. So Wednesday at 10 a.m. is when you're going to present your offers. Worst time to present, and then we'll close this topic down.
Hey.
Friday afternoon, Sunday evening, Monday morning, after 5 p.m. any day, newbie agents. During a busy open house weekend. So those are the worst times.
Okay, makes sense.
So from now on, Wednesday at 10 a.m. it is.
So don't book any appointments on Wednesdays just in case you're going to get offers in so you can give them your full undivided attention.
Assuming we've talked to the listing agent and the vendors are going to be available for the presentation.
Okay.
So moving along here, those subjects took longer than one would have expected. At least they're covered in detail. One of the most major expenses when you're buying a house is the property taxes. And property taxes, as we should know, are basically based on the expense of running that city or town or village or province or whatever it is. So it's only normal that a larger city is typically going to have less property taxes or lower property taxes than a smaller city. And you can notice this quite clearly when you look at, say, one city, hypothetically, that's 60,000 versus a city that's 20,000. You'll probably find the taxes in that larger city are probably as much as half of what they would be in that smaller community. So keep this in mind when you're looking at property. Say, for instance, you're looking at a house in Summerside, an exact house in Charlottetown, even though you may pay more for that house in Charlottetown or Stratford, your property taxes might be higher in that smaller center.
In the Summerside, just because, yes, and that is something to be mindful of. So the biggest expense would be your property, would be your mortgage, because we were discussing this before. So
negating the mortgage, just assume we're paying cash for the house, the biggest expense would probably be the property taxes.
Correct. Unless, again, getting into location, unless you are looking to purchase in a rural area, at that time, your biggest expense in home ownership is going to probably be your heating costs. whether it is heat pumps because you're using the electricity, or if you have propane or oil. We discussed the different heat sources or types on a Prince Edward Island home here, but it's going to be property taxes and your heating
I
costs.
heat my house with garbage.
Or wood. Wood is
about
also
garbage?
no one heats their house with garbage.
I was in a house years ago where he had cardboard floors, and I read on the floor, I could read frigid air, and he was heating the house with garbage through a wood stove. I was doing some high-end stuff back then.
Wow,
I think this house
Michael.
was $19,000.
Yeah, and then the other thing is part of your
You
expenses.
don't seem amused.
No, I don't. I just feel very bad for whomever this person was. The other big expense, or an expense that you should budget for every single year, are home improvements. Try not to leave them all until the day that you're looking to sell and then want top dollar. Do a little bit, budget for something every year to make sure that you are maintaining or being a steward of that home to hold its value, so that when the day does come that you do want to make a move, your home will present well, and it's not a huge bill of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 because you've deferred so much maintenance. So every year, just budget for at least one little project around the home.
I have had home sellers that were quite meticulous, that what they would do once a year is they would go through their house and see what needed work, and they would fix that on a yearly basis rather than having nothing but a horror story whenever they go to sell the house. And some examples might be a paint chip or a hole in a wall or a scratch on a floor or light switch that's dangling off the wall that's not secured properly.
Yeah, so a really good, where's your maintenance guide? I'm just going to let you know, when you purchased the house, you had a home inspection hopefully done. And that home inspection, because I know I printed mine off when I bought my house about 10 years or almost ago, is that becomes a bit of a guide for the next 3 to 5 years as to what kind of things were disclosed in the home inspection report that you should be maybe paying some attention and repairing. So that home inspection report, yes, it protects you on your purchase at that time, but it also can be used as your guide going forward as to your maintenance routine.
We're going to have a bit of a contest here between us.
Oh, okay.
Just before we close this down, government programs, not only for home buyers, first-time home buyers, second-time home buyers, but also developers. If you are one of these people and you're looking at partaking in real estate in Canada or in Prince Edward Island, these programs through the provincial and the federal governments are worth looking at. And I'm going to go through this quickly and we'll see how fast you can go through your 4 or 5 quickly. Deal?
Okay, I don't know what this is, but
Well, you'll see in a minute. So the
Okay.
Down Payment Assistance Program, known as DPAP, they love their acronyms. Basically, this is for first-time home buyers, interest-free loan up to 5% of the purchase price. That's available through PEI. Closing cost support program up to $2,500 towards closing costs. PEI. First-time home buyer transfer tax exemption exempts eligible first-time home buyers from the 1% real property tax and PEI. Affordable Housing Development Program provides forgivable loans to developers. You guys can look that up. Nonprofits, co-ops, up to $55,000 a unit, residential unit. Development incentive, Rudy. You've heard of Rudy? Neither have I.
No.
Provides a property tax rebate on the provincial portion for up to 5 years for multi-family unit rental housing projects. Your turn.
Okay, so supports for housing developers. It's a one-stop portal summarizing incentives and funding for housing developers, including HST, rebates, and loans. There's a housing construction incentive. This is a program to accelerate new housing construction across Prince Edward Island, including community housing and building acceleration grants. There's a tax-free first home savings account. So this allows Canadians to save up to $40,000 tax-free toward a first home, contributions deductible and withdrawals non-taxable. please look into that because I have a daughter that's not
She's taking advantage of HEBUB? Is it HEBUB?
No, the First Time Home Savings Plan, FHSA.
Okay.
Yeah. Just make sure you do your research and you understand what the programs and the time periods and how much you can put in. Then there's the Home Buyers Plan, the HVP.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Allows withdrawal of up to
HBUB.
$60,000 from RRSPs to buy or build a qualifying home without immediate tax implications. Program's a great program. I've had many clients over the years benefit from
But don't you have to pay that back?
Yes, you do have to pay it back. And it's all, again, they're subject to change this, but usually it's within 10 years is when they want you to have that initial loan amount paid back to your RRSP. Then there is the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund, federal provincial infrastructure investments of $86.2 million to accelerate housing development and support enabling infrastructure on PEI. So these are different programs that would be available. And again, you should make sure you do your due diligence and not just only take our word for it because they can change this at any time.
What's the best acronym in real estate? MAPS, the Michael and Patty Show. Thank you very much for listening. Patty, it's time to shut it down. This nonsense is done.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Michael and Patty Show, otherwise known as MAPS, PEI's podcast that helps guide and navigate you through the buying and selling in a little bit of Prince Edward Island as well. We appreciate each and every one of you for downloading and listening, and those who are joining our growing community on our private Moving to Prince Edward Island Facebook group from the Michael and Patty podcast. So again, this is coming out right around the holidays. So happy holidays to everyone.
Have a great day, everyone. Be sure to follow, like, thumbs up, feedback, star rating, and all that sort of social media stuff so we continue to make these episodes. Bye for now.
Bye for now.